Welcome to Mindful Live 89. I am your host Nathan Springer. It is the 6th of the 6th month 2022. Thank you for being here. It's usually a pleasure. Tonight we're talking about some interesting stuff. I came across some information at the end of last week. Some information came into my possession where I saw some details on a case that has been a big part of Trinidad for some time now. The DSS case, drugs susu. I know quite a few people know that. Quite a few people know of that. That was a susu. And the word susu here is doing a lot of heavy lifting, as they say. The word susu is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It was a susu that had some unique mathematics involved in it. I mean, the mathematics wasn't mathsing. The maths wasn't mathsing. To put it plain, to not beat around the bush, the maths of the DSS maths was not mathsing. The idea was you put in some money into the susu, you invite a couple other people, and after a couple weeks, you make a profit out of the susu. And anyone understanding how maths generally works knows that you don't get a profit out of nothing. You can't make something from nothing. The extra money you were getting out of the DSS, was coming from the other people you brought into the DSS. It was a Ponzi scheme. It was a pyramid scheme, basically. Now, the thing is, if we're being clear on it, I think most of the people involved were very much aware that it was that kind of scheme. They were all playing a kind of last one is the rotten egg kind of game there. Good night, world boss manager. Yes, your flower blossom. Oh, Nisi, you remember the terms oh so well, Nisi. Nisi, did you have a flower blossoming down there? Were you out there sowing flowers to blossom, Nisi? And to be very honest, like when you spoke to most people who were involved in that, when you saw a lot of the people who were involved in that speaking about it, most of them seem to have been very much aware that, good night savvy, that it was that kind of scheme. It was a scheme where the last one holding the bag is in trouble. Last one is the rotten egg. And to be very clear, I could understand some of the black people talk, the poor people talk that came out of that, because their blossom is the term. Yes, Belgrave Jasmine. Yes, Jasmine. Because there are many other Ponzi and pyramid schemes. If we're being clear, a lot of them made their way through Trinidad for the last decade or so. Trinidad has been a hotspot for Ponzi schemes. And listen, it's about time the poor people had a chance to start their own Ponzi scheme. Like, to be very honest, as you could probably tell a little bit, I could talk a bit. I think I could convince someone into something. So some of those schemes, to be clear with you all, they were tempting. Back in some of those more struggling days in university and stuff, they were very tempting. And I'm thinking, should I? And one of the things that always kept me from joining, apart from me being a good person and not wanting to ruin my moral compass, one of the things that kept me away from joining was the fact that if you join later down in a pyramid scheme, the later you join, the more difficult it is. If you are somewhere near the beginning of a successful pyramid scheme, life is nice. The earlier you enter the pyramid scheme, the better for you. So listen, it was about time that some Trinis entered at the very beginning. They were there for the creation, for the laying of the foundation of this pyramid, and they saw it built. And some of them in the earlies, I am confident, some of them in the earlies got what they were looking for in terms of the money. Now, as many people point out, including myself, the fact that the D in DSS, the D stood for drugs, was never exactly an inconspicuous choice. I heard somewhere that it was said the founder's nickname was Drugs, which doesn't really help either. But I think I would have gotten another Blossom BSS, something else, not the D. One of my girlfriend got about 3 hands. Wow! Yup, and some them good wasted. Oh, your new people who got into the earlies. Well done. She and he is all right. Yeah. So the early hands, some of them probably got it and were doing well. The D kinda was selling it out a bit, and some of the added attention that came to it, like, I mean, some people were just too greedy. The long lines, COVID-19 now going on, the pandemic now started, and people in a crowd out there looking for money. Then you're talking about buckets of money and bins of money and barrels of cash, and it was starting to get out of hand. It's kind of understood why it was getting that way. But as I was saying, to level it off, to keep balancing it, when you're talking about the global standard in terms of maths, the global standard in investment usually doesn't add up too well either. If you look at a lot of those investments on the global standard, those guys are doing whatever they want also. They were doing what they want back in the 2000s and ruined a lot of people's pension funds, blew it all, then got bailed out, took the money and blew it out again. So listen, if we're being fair on all of this, the financial system at that higher level in terms of investment and bankers, etc., is usually run in a kind of schemish way in the first place. So they weren't actually out of the ordinary when it comes to that. However, they probably did not grease the right wheels when they were supposed to, even though it was alleged that quite a few of the hands inside of the DSS were being held by servicemen too. That was part of the allegations. But it seems like nonetheless the attention they drew was too much to continue. They flew too close to the sun. I don't know how many of you know that. Who is that guy? Icarus, the Greek fable. He flew too close to the sun, and it seems like DSS flew too quickly, too close to the sun, and they attracted the attention of the authorities, and they were promptly shut down. Now, I was always curious. I saw them shut down. I knew the maths wasn't mathsing. I knew this wasn't quite adding up. But if people are willing to do it, I want to see exactly what the charges were that were going to be laid. They shut them down. They took the money. They fought for some money. Some money came back. Some money went back. All right. Okay. Grand. Now I am sitting here anxiously awaiting when charges are going to start to be laid. Boom! Recently I've seen charges were laid. Grand. And I read about it. It seems the way how it was phrased, the man was trying to exit the Piaco International Airport. And the police got him and nabbed him there and charged him on 4 or 5 counts of money laundering. So I was like, okay, that's how they're going to catch him. Okay, that's the route here. You know, if they can't account for this, it's money laundering in some kind of way. People started changing their name to where the money and thing. When the police took the money, he was glad to say it's not my fault. Plus, the money they took was not enough to pay most of the people. Ronnie, that's kind of obvious. As I said, the maths was not mathsing. It was just a matter of time before the whole thing came crumbling down. And as far as I was following, there were different branches that branched out, and some branches wilted. Some branches wilted. And listen, there's a saying, a fool and his money shall quickly be parted. And it's only so much, there's only so much pity I can feel if the entirety of social media was sounding the loud horn. Listen, this thing is a Ponzi scheme. If you want to enter at your own risk. And if people wanted to enter, well, it's the gamble. You entered the gamble, and if you lost your money in the gamble, that's your business. I am not sure how much pity I have for that, because in your entry into that, you were hoping to get someone else's money too. So you were hoping to get something for nothing. So the fact that you lost some of your something and gained nothing, well, it's kind of poetic, if you get my drift. I'm not happy people lost their money. If they lost their money, I'm sorry if any of you in the chat lost your money. My heart goes out to you. But to be clear, you went swimming in the shark-infested waters. So you may not have asked to be bitten, but being bitten was a possibility. Now, illegitimate business was made to launder unaccounted money. You see, Jasmine Belgrave, that's what I thought. He took advantage of people. I'm not sure about that. Easy. I'm sure some people were taken advantage of. I have no doubt about that. But there were many people very much aware about everything going on, and they went in there with their eyes wide open. And it wasn't only him. There were evangelists for this flower blossom business all around the country. And in fact, I believe several unique flower blossoms began sprouting in different areas of the country, all on their own, that had no association with DSS. So it wasn't a one-man thing. Either way, we reached the point of the charges where it seems like this whole thing is coming to a solution. He was charged with money laundering. The article said it was money laundering. Let's get into some of these stories and see as they say. DSS found a priest charged with money laundering, and this article was from June 1st, 2022, from the Loop TT. Karen Priest Clark, the founder of Drug Susu, was granted what a name! The founder of Drug Susu was granted bail in the sum of $80,000 with a surety by Justice of the Peace Stephen Young after he was charged with 4 counts of money laundering yesterday. The decision to lay charges followed advice received from the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, Joanne Honore Paul. On Monday, the accused arrived on a flight at the Piaco International Airport, where he was arrested by officers of the Special Investigations Unit, who subsequently handed him over to the officers of the Financial Investigations Branch, who laid the charges. So, when I first heard this story, I thought he was trying to escape, but alright, when I read this, okay, it wasn't as dramatic as I thought. Rooney is vexed she didn't get in early. Good night, Richard Glubman. So, when I first heard that they caught him at the airport, I thought he was trying to make his escape. It turns out, no, it wasn't that dramatic. The man was coming back in. And when you're talking about charges of this nature, when you're hearing financial type charges are raised against MPs and government officials and the financiers, etc., they are asked to come to the station with their lawyer. They are invited to the station. They are invited to the Financial Investigation Branch to, answer some questions and assist with the investigation. Already, the fact that he was coming into the country and they caught him at the airport, that seems kind of purposeful. To me, when I'm evaluating this, I don't know to you, but it seems kind of purposeful that they wanted a bit of drama in this. At the airport, as he landed, they were aware of his schedule. If they were aware of his schedule, him coming back in, I would suppose they would have been aware of his schedule where he would have been going after that, and they could have held him at his home, etc. But okay, at the airport, Clark of Phase 1 Lahaketa is scheduled to appear at the Arima Magistrates Court on June 27, 2022. The charges stem from a susu which Clark allegedly headed back in 2020. Hundreds of participants lauded the initiative as a method to financial freedom, etc., etc., etc. We know how that went. So, Loop Titi says the charges stemmed from susu. Okay, cool. When I read the express version, DSS founder charged with money laundering. They spoke of him as being the DSS founder. They said he was charged. They said where he lived. They didn't say what the charges were directly. They didn't say where the charges stemmed from. And okay. Similarly, in the Guardian piece too, DSS founder charged with money laundering. Similar information. And then they give a quick little backstory of the DSS news. I read the police release to see if they had the direct charges that were laid. Just to read it, the police release over on Facebook did not have those direct charges. However, I was furnished with a media release that actually has the technical charges that were laid. And they may not be exactly what you would have thought. Something very interesting you may note with them. And if you aren't looking at this on the YouTube channel, you may be wondering, but I'm not seeing any of this. Well, that's why you usually should subscribe to Nathan Springer over on YouTube, my YouTube channel. Head over there, hit a like button once you're viewing the video. Anytime you're viewing this, make sure to hit a like button. Subscribe to Nathan Springer over there. You can see the pictures, the story, etc. scrolling in the back of me as I go over on the YouTube channel. That's the benefit of the YouTube. So yes, there's that. But yes, the media release has a little more specifics in it. The media release goes into a little more specifics. So let's see this. On Monday, 30th May 2022, Mr. Karen Clark, was arrested upon arrival at the Piaco International Airport and was subsequently charged with the following offenses: lending money without a license for the sum of $800 in February 2018, lending money without a license for the sum of $1,000 in October 2019, lending money without a license for the sum of $1,000 in November 2019, lending money without a license for the sum of $1,000 in November 2019. It is the understanding of the Financial Investigation Branch of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service that lending money without a license is a crime, and receiving interest on such amount is receiving criminal property, which, as such, constitutes the act of money laundering. Are you all following what I just read? He was charged for lending money without a license. And just in case you were wondering, I asked him, and he confirmed he was never charged with anything regarding DSS. These are separate matters. Isn't that interesting? These charges are because he functioned as a money lender. He lent money and he didn't have a license for it. And here's the trick with it. Lending the money itself isn't wrong. You could lend who you want money. But once you collect the interest, as a money lender would, you collect interest on the money that you lent, then that interest, the fact that you are not licensed, that interest is now proceeds from crime, because lending it without a license is a crime. So you just received money as proceeds from crime, and because you received money as proceeds from crime, it can now be considered as money laundering. So that's a laundered definition of money laundering, really and truly. And to be very honest, I can tell you that possibly 80% of the daily workers in Trinidad and Tobago are engaged in money laundering. How many of you lend money to people on a regular basis and charge them interest in the return? That's a crime, just by the way. And look at the figures that they charged him for here. These aren't 80,000 and 800,000. They were talking about lending money for the sum of $800 in 2018, $1,000 three times in 2019. The cumulative sum of $3,800 the man lent out, alleged by the police here. And all the articles have it listed as if these were charges laid due to the DSS issue. But they are not. Yes, you can get arrested, Nisi. But what this is showing me, even beside the fact that probably all of us could get arrested, because nearly all of us probably lent out some money, and nearly all of us wouldn't mind collecting a little interest, and maybe even demanding the interest, and maybe we have worked out a regular interest we charge to the regular borrowers, and many of us run that system. Yeah, you could be charged. But beside that, what this seems to be is they were looking for something to get him whipped. Because this may be a charge you could charge 3/4 of the country with. This to me seems to be kind of targeted. To charge someone, hold them at the airport when they come off of a flight for lending $3,800. Like, think about it. You turn up at the airport with police to grab someone for lending $3,800, basically around the minimum wage salary for a month. You lock up someone at the airport for. Like, I don't think it's really for that. And then I don't think that the phrase that has 4 counts of money laundering in all of the articles and 4 counts of money laundering in the Trinidad police release, I don't think they did that by mistake. I don't think they did that by mistake. Maybe this is just the start. Richard Glubman, I am not surprised that you are here in your usual defense of the police, but I am not asking you, because I have further evidence, because I have pictures of the actual arresting documents. Yes, I have pictures of the arresting documents, and directly I am not saying that out, Rooney. And directly stating what this was for, when it was for. And it had nothing to do with DSS. It had solely to do with him lending money without a moneylender's license. Now, yes, Richard Glubman, we know your mantra, legal is legal and the law is the law, and he broke the law, and etc, etc, etc. And as the strong police over on the TV station always does, makes continuous excuses for misbehavior of the police, and then we are surprised that the country is one of the most corrupt and crime infested nations in the world, because the police are as they are. Willing to run up into the airport, make a big scene to arrest someone for lending $3,800 over the course of 2 years. Because bear in mind, it's 2018 and 2019. Good night, fellas. 2 years, $3,800. Lock him up at the airport. $80,000 bail. Yes, good use of our police. Elizabeth Natasha Surratt says, my daughter needs to be charged. She's 13 years. I paid her interest that she demanded. Whoa. Yes, that's the thing. Your daughter is breaking the law, and according to these police here, your daughter may be able to be, if they follow this same kind of modus operandi, the police may turn up at your daughter's school gates and arrest her as she leaves the gates with a backpack, carry her down to the station and give her a couple tens of thousands of dollars bail, because by all means she is money laundering your crook of a daughter. Her. Oh, that crook. Like, really? Josiah, the topic right now is DSS and the charges that were laid against the DSS founder for money laundering, that after some digging we have now realized is more like money lending and not money laundering. And here's the thing to me. the thing to me, if DSS did something wrong, broke the law, by all means, find out how, charge him, charge those involved. But it is very strange for you to be unable to charge them for this big issue, and then now all of a sudden all the minor issues around, he all of a sudden has a magnifying glass on it. Do not victimize someone because you were not able to charge them for the significant issue. And then you are passing it off in the media to make it seem like the DSS issue has been solved. But the DSS issue has not been solved. No charges have been laid because of that. So I am kind of curious here. If no charges have been laid because of DSS, are they saying that what he did was legal? 2 years have passed and the police and our DPP office seem unable to figure out what law he broke in the DSS business. How they can charge Lawrence Dupree? Oh, you calling big names there. Massimo Original over on Instagram says, yes, indeed, it looks like there was some personal bereavement that caused the police to look for any petty charges that could be levied against him. And bear in mind, what I found interesting in some of this is that some additional information was included in this release. I remember this. He was charged previously last year also. He had 2 charges laid against him last year. And the two charges from last year were the same thing. I actually remember that last year. And I remember when it made the news last year, they said that he was charged for operating as a money lender without a license. That was the news article. That was the news story. So it is strange now. It is strange now to see that the headline changed to money laundering for the same charges that were called lending money without a license last year. Interesting. Kevin Francis says, so they're holding the DSS money and making up time to pass laws in Parliament. Well, if that's what they're doing, that they'd have to come really good there, because they'd have to get some law that could work in retrospect. I'm not sure how legal all of that is going to be. I'm not sure how legal all of that is going to be. But yes, I found that to be very interesting. And I also saw numerous people commenting about it, and a lot of the comments were headed down that road where they were talking about that was the inevitable end and the money laundering, etc., etc. And you're seeing that many people are believing that those money laundering charges were because of the DSS. But when is line 20 going to be paid out? Listen, partner, I don't know all of that. I am not involved in the inside DSS business. I just don't know. But yes, as we see, it's not. I find that kind of dishonest. Not kind of. I find that very dishonest and inappropriate. And I think maybe even the media should have dug a bit deeper too. Dig into it to figure out exactly what is going on. Make sure that what you are publishing correctly depicts the facts of the situation. But level servicemen had flowers blossom. I heard that, Nisi. That was the talk I heard. I wasn't there to know. I didn't know all of that. But that's what I heard. That many servicemen were on the inside. When there's some allegations that some servicemen attempted to forcefully retrieve their blossomed flowers when they went to read. Wow, the function of the entire business really was not sustainable. It just wasn't sustainable. The attention it attracted, the fact that they were working on cash alone, and that it seems obvious they had even too much cash for them to handle. I think it exceeded their own expectations. So it was going to crash. As someone said, they think that some of those responsible may have been happy that the police saw to it that it ended. I don't know if that's necessarily so, but I think like it was going to crash. I feel like it was going to crash. And the speed it was growing, it would have been crashing faster and faster and faster. And the amount that was being paid out too. Listen, it was possible to be sustainable. The only way for it to be sustainable is for it to become a closed circle. As in, all the people involved always keep putting back money inside of the circle. You never, when you take out and you spend every other week, so you allow somebody to bring you back into it. And then all you're doing is you're shifting the money from person to person. It's like, I watch sometimes the village gamble in some places. Where you see six uncles, and they always gambling with each other. The same six uncles always gambling in the same spot every Friday night with the same money. This week Uncle George win, the next week Uncle Harry win, and then the next week they switch it again. Richard Glubman says, no, that would not be sustainable. Work out the math. I did work out the math. I can't remember, it has been a while now, but the math worked out to basically the idea was every person must invite 7 people or something to that effect, and then you would get a portion of that 7 people. Now, if every person that invited 7 people allowed every person that invited them to invite them back in and pay back in, then it would become a circle where they all pool the money into the same pool and withdraw the money. As someone pointed out, it would basically be like a regular susu. It's just it would be an exponential susu where you gather much earlier, but then you'd stay paying out afterwards for it. Yes, it would work out. The only way it wouldn't work out is if people leave and stop paying money back into the susu. It's just how susus work. If the money stays in, the money stays in. And you can work certain things like that where you try to spin the money inside of your community better and allow people to access the joint funds of the community at times when they need it. And that's what a susu does by and large. But what they were doing is impossible. It's impossible because the very nature of it, they were thinking of it as an investment where many of the people were speaking about it as if it was stocks they were investing in, where I would put in $1,000 into my stocks, and then in the course of a week or 2 weeks, my stocks are going to pay dividends and I will pull out $2,500. Well, no, that's not the system you're functioning in there. The money cannot grow because you aren't investing in anything. It's just the same amount of money that is being put in, being taken out. So, no, it cannot work like that. Granted. I ready to start a new susu, bring 2, invest 5,000 and leave with 25,000. Something songing little fishy with that. Something songing little fishy. And but according to the fact that no charges were laid, could make it seem like nothing was legally wrong, or they're still trying to figure it out. Of course, Mr. I Love Black Women. I stuck with 250,000 return on investment. Of course I did. Like, I remember back then, I got into so much. I was laughing at it, to be very honest, because it was very obvious. If you pay out faster than you receive, then you're doing deficit business. Correct. I was laughing at it in the earlies because it was so obvious. Like to me, I felt like it was the organo gold, and you know those things. You know those things, the organo gold, etc., etc., etc. I felt like it was like those without the extra steps. Like, they didn't even bother trying to sell you coffee or anything like that. They took out all of the marketing side of those marketing and networking schemes and just gave you the raw scheme. Like, listen, listen. We ain't coming here to mama guy you. We being honest. It's straight scheme. There's no coffee. There are no beauty products. There's no bath soap. There's no I4X. There's no healthy food, healthy drink, none of that. There's none of that involved here. It's cash. Cash. We have thrown away all of those frivolities. We're just making it plain here. We dealing cash. Bring cash and come. I rather that than some of those more sophisticated ones. Remove all the we're not here to sell anything. Like, oh gosh, some of these people still have boxes of coffee piled up inside of their house. Listen, the people with the DSS, and you don't have any coffee in your house. You don't have any coffee piled up in your house. The cash is missing, yes, but at least you don't have some weird mushroom coffee piled up inside of your house. You just have the cash missing. So no one can come in there and see the embarrassment in your storeroom. I don't doubt it used to taste good easy, but hung wing cheaper, and I prefer the taste nonetheless. And it's the same result. It's the same result. You lose money and you don't gain the promise that they promised you. It's the same result, really and truly, just minus the extra coffee in your house, minus the extra the piles of bath soap. You all know that one, all the bath soap and shampoos and conditioner. You don't have the piles of those expensive ones that no one is going to use. No one is using it. You don't have that. Same scheme though. Same scheme. As I said, to some extent, I could rate it. The plainness of it. They didn't beat around the bush with it. It is what it is. Alright, for you folks over on YouTube, that's all I have for now. And you folks over on Instagram too, that is all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and entertained. And I'll be over on TikTok for a little while longer, discussing and just chilling. Not very much longer. If you don't come over there and hang out, well, I'll see you again for the next Mindful Life tomorrow at 9:30 p.m. And